typically have the stereotype like Specolli or something, where, this spacey, zoned out dude. But the article was about that, like surfers and people that have a surfing background are some of the best problem solvers out there, because they are typically always analyzing. Yeah, that's what you do when you're out there, and it's one of the things that is very spiritual about surfing, is that you kind of got to focus. It's like fly fishing. When people say they're out fly fishing, they forget about all their other problems.
That was Ben Furimsky talking about his background as a surfer. We get into specolli and the fly fishing show today in episode 61 of the podcast.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. Please take a moment and head over to wetflyswing.com/subscribe and subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. In today's show, I chat with Ben Furimsky, the man behind the largest fly fishing show in the world. We talk about how the show came to be, Lefty Kreh's influence on Ben's life, and how he judges success of each show. Ben talks about his home river, the Gunnison, dry fly fishing, and George Harvey. Don't miss this, as Ben surprises me a bit when he talks about how he is approaching 300 species on the fly. So, without further ado, here's Ben Furimsky from theflyfishingshow.com.
How's it going, Ben?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to have you on the show. We're getting up to show season. I guess depending on when people listen to this, it might not be that season, but right now it is show season. And you guys, the fly fishing show is probably, I'm not sure of the stats and all that, but I know it's one of the bigger, maybe the biggest fly fishing show out there. But I want to touch on some of that. But before we get into it, maybe you can talk a little about how you got into fly fishing and then how all that came into the show.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I started fly fishing from my dad mostly. He taught me as a kid, and I was probably fly fishing on my own by the time I was 6 or 7, mostly for panfish and occasional bass in some farm ponds that I fished in southwestern PA. And then I got into some saltwater fishing living in New Jersey, so I had a well-rounded foundation early on.
Nice. So you, 6 or 7, that's pretty awesome on your own. And your dad, you mentioned he was part of the story behind the beginning of the fly fishing show. Could you talk a little bit about how, the beginning of how all that came to be?
Well, yeah, sure. My dad actually had a leather goods business, and he was an avid fly fisherman and attended some sportsman shows with his business, selling different belts and wallets and things of that sort that were towards the outdoor world. And through the two, he kind of saw a need to create a fly fishing specific event. I'd originally started doing a what he called Trout Masters Weekend that was more of a private, small session, weekend long class, limited to, I forget how many people, no more than 100. It might have been like 30 people. And Lefty Kreh was one of the original instructors, and they spoke more. And he also said it would be great to do this type of event. So my dad started something called the Fly Fishers Symposium, which was at Seven Springs Mountain Resort in Pennsylvania. And it was a small fly fishing specific event, and it went over really well. And around the same time, another guy was doing a small event in central Pennsylvania, Barry Serviente, to promote he was a bookseller in fly fishing, and he was kind of doing it on that to help promote his business. Together, they kind of combined efforts. Then they met through the grapevine and created the fly fishing show, and had the first one in Somerset, New Jersey, and we had it there for 25 years and just moved last year to Edison, New Jersey, when that facility went away.
Yep. And you also have a few other shows around the country?
Yes, we have 7 locations nationwide.
And
we started last week in Denver, and then we go to Marlborough, Massachusetts next weekend, January 18th, 19th, and 20th. Then we're in Edison, New Jersey, the largest on the planet, actually. That's the largest fly fishing consumer event right there. And as you said, we do produce the largest consumer fly fishing shows. Several, all combined, are by far the largest, but several are large standalone events. Denver is a close second behind Edison now. And that's January 25th, 26th, and 27th. Then we go to Atlanta, Georgia on February 1st and 2nd. That's our newest event, and it's third year this year. Linwood, Washington after that, which is the Seattle area, February 16th and 17th. And then we move down to Pleasanton, California, which is the Bay Area, February 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And then we finish back in our home state of Pennsylvania, March 9th and 10th.
Gotcha. So you pack it all in within a few months here.
Yep. We, most of the shows are done during the off season as best as we can, because that's when people want to go to the shows. When fishing's hot, they're out doing that instead. Gotcha.
That's cool. Okay, and back in the day, and what year was that when you mentioned your dad? And what was his name again?
My dad or his partner?
Yeah, your dad and his partner.
Oh, my dad's Chuck Furimsky, and his partner was Barry Serviente.
Okay.
And Barry retired a number of years ago. I suppose like 10 years or more now. And then my dad and I ran the show for a while, and then my dad retired about a year and a half ago. And he still works with the show. He's more of like the figurehead and introduces all of our celebrities for us at the show. He'll never really retire fully because it's, we consider ourselves the show family. Yeah. And because we travel around for a couple of months together and everybody's hanging out and we get to be all really good friends. It's a small industry and, we already have like interests. And so he loves to be there, and I'm just doing all the behind the scenes work now.
Nice. And your dad, I'm sure you've connected. You mentioned Lefty, Kreh. I'm sure there's been plenty of other people that have influenced you. But what do you think has been the biggest influence, from your dad, as I'm sure a big mentor of yours over the years?
I would say my dad, he'd have to speak for himself, but I would say one of his biggest mentors was George Harvey. George taught the fly fishing class at Penn State University, and my dad took it there, and I think that's really where he got his foundation in fly fishing. He was already a fisherman and dabbled in fly fishing, I believe, but once he went to school there, he became a dedicated fly fisherman.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard a little bit. We've talked a little bit about that show, which is pretty unique, or not the show, but the education piece there in PA, which is pretty cool. And I had George Daniel on the podcast in a recent episode, and we talked about that there's been a number of his mentors, or at least one big one went through that, was led that program. George Daniel was on in episode 55 of this show. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And so for yourself, as far as mentors with your dad, who else are there others that were kind of direct influences for you along the, your time fly fishing?
Oh, for me, I mean, obviously my dad and, and Lefty and also Joe Humphries, who you referred to from George. Joe took over from George in teaching the Penn State class.
That's right.
And taught it for a long time. Both George and Joe are headlining speakers for us at the fly fishing show, so you can you can see them at different ones of our events. And everybody that I fish with, spent a lot of time guiding, and even beginners that I've fished with are influential, because you can always learn from people and learn what they appreciate, as well as looking at things through others' eyes to see, what they're thinking about the fly fishing, whether it's just the environment that you're in, or how they're trying to make their cast, or anything. You can always learn. In order to be a good instructor, you also have to be able to understand where someone's coming from in both their learning styles and just how they're viewing and appreciating something. So you should always be learning, and I think that's one of the most appealing things with fly fishing. I'm not a golfer, but a lot of people sometimes compare it, and I can appreciate why people like golf, because you can go out one day and have your best day ever, and the next day just have a horrible time at it.
Yeah.
So you can always improve. You're never going to be the best. I mean, even if you are the best, there's always something else that you can challenge yourself with, even more so, in fly fishing, because you're in the natural environment instead of an artificial course. So nature is constantly changing. So you've got to learn things like hatches and deal with, the environment a little bit more than you would in golf. So it's always evolving. You're learning about the environment as well as the sport itself. So it's something that you can do for your whole life and always have something to learn, which I think is what, attracts people to keep doing it.
Yeah, those are good points. I was thinking as you were talking there, just a little bit about, that comparison to golf, and this is kind of a random one, but, Tiger Woods popped in my mind for some reason, but, I guess, a little different story there, but just thinking about people sticking with it, because I know some people don't stick with fly fishing. Things happen. They, I don't know if injuries are part of that, but, do you see yourself, as you're doing what you do, as sticking through this? I'm not sure how old you are now, but is this something you look at doing for your entire life?
Yeah, I believe so. I couldn't imagine not doing it. It changes, obviously, as you might get older, your physical capabilities could become more limiting. Lately, staring at a computer screen too much, my eyes are having a little trouble tying on fine tippet.
Yeah, that's right.
I was famous for being able to tie on a fly with the smallest piece of tippet and barely not even having to trim my knot, but now I need to use a little more line for that.
That's right. And how old are you?
Me, I'm 46.
Oh, 46. Yeah, you're still a young buck then. You got you're about the time. You're about the age where the glasses. That's about the 40s is where it starts hitting you pretty good. That's pretty funny. I'm the same. I couple of last year or so kind of went to the glasses for fly tying, and it's actually been a game changer. So it's been great.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I expect to be able to do it. I might not be able to be as adventurous, when I'm, another however many years old or whatever might slow a person down. But you can still do it. I mean, I've guided and worked with people with disabilities, and I've guided and taught people that are quite elderly, and they enjoy it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So it's something that you can do for a long time. It's just different levels. I mean, that's one of the appealing things. You couldn't be a football player your whole life. It's just going to be a little challenging, I think, if you got tackled when you were 86 by a 20-year-old. But I could go fishing if I'm lucky enough to make it till I'm 86 with a 20-year-old, and we could enjoy our time together.
That's true.
And both be doing the sport.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I wanted to jump in. We talked a little bit off air just about the Gunnison River as kind of one of your home rivers. But before we jump into some of that, some questions I had there, I just want to bring it back again to when the show started. And you said your dad partnered up to do the show. At the time, were there any other shows going on, or what was out there for people that might have been similar back in there? Was this the first time any of this was ever even created?
There was some sportsman shows, and that was about it. There may have been some small local fly fishing events through clubs and things like that, but not really a major national or even international event to that level.
Okay. And
not for consumers.
Not for consumers. And you guys, are you thinking potentially internationally?
Oh, no. Some of our shows are international. They're all based within the U.S., but we really draw internationally, especially our Edison show in New Jersey, because it's just outside of Newark and New York, so it's easy access for international customers. Denver's growing on that a bit.
Yeah. But as far as taking,
it kind of depends on where the flights are.
Yeah.
I'm expecting Atlanta to get an international flavor to it.
Gotcha. But you're not expecting to travel over to Europe or anything like that to do a show there?
No, just the business side of it, gets complicated with all the international rules, and it's just a little more than I want to dive into right now.
Gotcha. But
we get requests for it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's the thing. It's a worldwide, especially, as I'm starting to get into kind of a destination type season here on the show. And, I've talking to people from all around, fishing Africa. I mean, pretty much every spot of the world, we're kind of, seems like out there, people are fishing it now on the fly. I'm not sure of your history. It sounds like you've done a little bit of saltwater fishing. Maybe we could touch on that a little bit as if we have time towards the end. But, I did want to, one more question there on the show, as far as, if you think about the show today, and I guess you could pick any of the ones you talk about, whether that's Denver or Edison or whatever, but how would you describe the show to somebody who's never been to it before? Well,
each and every show is different, but yet each and every show has similar things. Like if you talk about a major manufacturer, an international brand, their presence at each and every show is pretty similar that they may attend. So, if you wanted to go see, for example, Patagonia and talk to them about their new award-winning Danner boot, it's going to be the same at every show. But you're also going to see at every one of our shows different celebrities, different speakers, different fly tyers, different casters and authors, and different retailers that are more regional. The retailers tend to be of a somewhat regional range, not always. So you're talking to your local stores, perhaps, as well as outfitters that vary from show to show. So you might be able to go in and talk to an outfitter from Alaska at several of our shows, but they may not be at all of them due to different reasons. There are budgets for attending the shows. But you also may talk to someone, like, say, in Denver, that's a guide on the Arkansas River locally. So there's a lot of local flavor at every show, as well as international and national people. We have customers that have the opportunity to attend different ones, and they choose to do that because they can see something different at every show, and they'll plan it out in advance to see what's different at each one rather than getting the repeats. However, if they do see something that's a talk that might be at both, but they found it really good at one and so informative, they want to go see it again to get more information because they couldn't absorb it all, they'll go see the same one again. We have people that do that all the time.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And do you make it around to all the shows? Are you actually physically there, or who is the person kind of running the things on the ground?
Oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I've got to be there for all of them.
Okay.
It's a busy couple of months of travel.
Yeah. What's the best and the worst thing about the show season?
Well, I'll tell you the worst thing. I do like to travel to fish. It's one of my things. I travel all over the globe fishing, and when I'm done traveling for 2.5 months every week, I kind of want to stay at home, and it takes away from like my desire to maybe travel to go fishing. So that's really one of the worst things, is I don't want to go away
Yep.
when I might even have an opportunity to go fish somewhere.
Gotcha.
And I really want to. It's just the motivation is gone to go and get on a plane again.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the worst thing. Best thing is just seeing everybody, helping, share the sport to new people and bring education and information to all levels. But we always, it's when the show season starts, as it did just 2 weeks ago, or a week and 3 days ago was our first show in Denver, and you're loading up for that, and you're like, oh man, it's show season again. And when we all get there, it's great to see our friends, and like I say, we're a show family, so everybody enjoys the company, and we look forward to it. And once we're there, we're kind of excited to see everybody, and motivated for the show season.
Nice. And what are some of the, if you had to say some of the big attractions? It sounds like it varies between events, but I guess if you had to say the Washington State event, I think you mentioned the Linwood. Are there any special attractions that people can expect for that one, or any things that kind of bring more people in?
Well, there's certain attractions at each event that are slightly different, but the bigger attractions are generally the same. They might be different topics or different people doing it, but our big attractions are, as I mentioned, education. So we have a lot of seminars and presentations going on at any given time, more than you could ever see in a whole weekend. So I had a good buddy who's gotten into fly fishing for a couple of years and finally got to make it to our Denver show. And he's actually been doing some, part-time work with us. And it was the first time he got to make one of the events. And he came up to me after the first day and he's like, man, if you just go to 2 or 3 of the seminars, he's like, that's more than worth it for your ticket value. Yep. And, we've got hundreds of those going on throughout the weekend. Mm-hmm. And so attending the seminars is a big draw, and we have information that can range from, educational stuff on techniques to destinations, all kinds of different topics that you can go and see. So if you were going with a couple buddies and you wanted to plan a destination trip, you can go and see a bunch of things that might be in the realm of what you want to do. Like if you wanted to go travel north for, rainbows or Arctic char or something like that, or if you wanted to go to the tropics or the jungle, you can go see presentations on all those and decide what's most attractive to you. You could also go see stuff on all the presentations of fly fishing or the techniques used for all those different types of destinations. One of my favorites to always visit are the fly tires. We have demonstration fly tires going on throughout the day at every show. So there's some that you might be able to see repeats, but there are always different ones at every show, and you can see local or national fly tires or international fly tires demonstrating their techniques, and there's always something you can learn from them. We have things like the International Fly Fishing Film Festival that happens at every one of our shows. So that's an after hours event that's a lot of fun to attend.
Nice.
All those different things are draws.
Gotcha.
There's always something
awesome.
There.
Those are awesome. Yeah.
As well as it's an opportunity to test all the new product more so than you can anywhere, as well as talking to the people. You might go and talk to the person that literally designed the fly rods for a manufacturer instead of talking to someone at a shop that's got his information, third, fourth hand. He might be explaining it very well, but it's always interesting to talk to the person that literally designed the fly rod from square one.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is a great pitch for your show. I think I'm going to be up there to the Washington event this year, and yeah, I think you just pitched a real great. Anybody that's listening to this, it sounds like there's a ton of useful information out there. If somebody wanted to find out ahead in advance, like what events and what speakers, where would they go to find? Is that someplace they can go online to find that?
Yeah, if you go to our website at flyfishingshow.com and click on each event that you or may be interested in attending, we have bios and photos of all the celebrities and all the fly tires, as well as schedules of all the events that are going on. Maybe special events you could look at, or you can look at all the seminars and all the casting demonstrations or featured fly tire demonstrations. But we also have other things that are continuously running all the time that aren't necessarily listed on the website.
Gotcha.
But looking in advance is a great way to plan it out, because there is more than you can see in a day.
Yeah.
We've got I get a lot of people that come for the first time. They tell me that they come for the first time, and they'll plan a couple of hours in the afternoon thinking that that's enough to go visit it, because they maybe have done some smaller local events and that's adequate time, and they get there and they're completely overwhelmed. And they always tell me that the next year they plan the whole weekend.
Yeah.
So you can get to appreciate it.
So is that, if you had to give somebody a tip or two about how to get the most out of your event if they're going there for the first time, what would that be?
Look at the schedules of all the presentations and see what intrigues you the most, and schedule that out throughout your day. So you have a schedule, like say at 11 o'clock, you wanted to go see Joe Humphries cast. And then at 2 o'clock, you wanted to see George Daniel talk about nymphing.
Yeah.
So, you can schedule that stuff out and make a plan. And then just plan more time than you think you need, because you're always going to wander around a little bit and get caught up in conversations. And anybody that's been around the sport for some time, you'll run into friends and make new friends, and that's part of it as well. So you end up getting caught up in conversations, and it takes you a while to get around the show floor.
That's right. Yeah, I like that you mentioned George Daniel Nymphing. I had him on, as I mentioned, and the one thing he said was, he said, I don't want to talk about nymphing when we do the interview. So George, obviously he's done a lot of that and known for it, but that kind of gets me thinking about, must be a challenge for you. I know it is for me, but how do you choose the guests and the topics that you're covering at each of your events?
It is a challenge. I schedule day-long presentations, days full of presentations, I should say, for literally hundreds of people. And so it takes a lot of effort. It's like building a puzzle without a plan, and you got to create something there. I try to pick topics, and as well as speakers that are well-rounded, different disciplines. And what I try to do is create something that appeals for everybody. So across the day, you can find something for a beginner to an expert, an advanced angler, and everything in between. Techniques that you use in all of your fly fishing. There might be something that's saltwater. It could be something, you talk about like the Linwood show. We definitely have stuff that involves sea run, like the sea run fish like steelhead and salmon out there, which, I might not focus on as much in Denver because it's not necessarily, as popular of a game fish here, because we don't really have them. But we still do have talks on it, and people travel for it. So you can always find it. Yeah. It may be just of how highly it is on the featured presentation schedule, and the size of the room capacity. So I factor all those things in and try to make a good schedule, avoid conflicts of topics. If we have 2 or 3 topics on flats fishing, one could be on the Bahamas and one could be on Belize. One could be on Christmas Island. I try not to make them all at the same time. So if there's a particular person that is looking for doing a flats trip somewhere, they can go see them all as best as we can make it work, and get different angles and perspectives on similar topics.
Gotcha. So I was going to check in with you. So I think we talked off air. You mentioned the Gunnison is one of your home rivers. If you take the Gunnison and think about, it sounds like you've done some guiding and things like that. If somebody was, I guess, at the Denver show and they wanted to learn some tips or, tips and tricks on fishing the Gunnison or rivers that are similar, would you have some resources, that they could dig in there? And maybe you can just provide some general tips about, fishing that system.
Oh, sure. I mean, you mean for me personally or at the shows? Because
Yeah.
at the Denver show, we had numerous talks on the Gunnison.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Different stretches of it from, the upper stretches where I am and what is my local water to down through the Black Canyon and Gunnison Gorge and in the lower stretches. There are presentations on that, but it is my home water, and one of the things that I like about the Gunnison in particular is it's faster river. I like to fish faster water. I enjoy that, the challenge of that, and it's also a very good dry fly river. So I mean, there's been years where I basically never threw anything but dry flies, maybe a dropper, but never even a nymphing rig.
Huh. And what is faster river? What does that mean? Is it just kind of lots of white water, lots of rapids?
Yeah, a lot of pocket water, faster flowing, a lot of different currents to read, and it's not as much like slick, meandery pools, but you can find that as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And how do you typically? What's your best advice for catching fish, or how do you catch fish there? Are you kind of doing a lot of nymph? You said you do some dry. Is that mostly what you do, or are there more effective ways to catch fish there?
Mostly dry fly dropper fishing.
Okay.
I do on the Gunnison. That's kind of my specialty there, because we do have a lot of fairly shallow water compared to some other major rivers, and you can access as far as depth with a nymph off of a dry fly just as well, and then you also have the opportunity to catch the fish on the dry fly. Okay. And a lot of times, we'll start out with a dry fly dropper, and you'll be catching more on the dropper, and then as the hatch progresses, your action turns into the dry fly. You may even take the dropper off and fish the dry, and then once the hatch finishes up, go back to having the nymphs. So
Gotcha.
That's kind of.
And I saw some of the Furimsky's BDE. Is that a pattern? I wasn't sure if that was your pattern, or do you have a few patterns that kind of your go-to patterns you like to use? And is that one of yours?
Yes, it is. That is. It stands for best dry ever. Actually.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
And it is. I've designed quite a few flies over the years, and that's probably the one that I'm most proud about. It's different, and it's a different, pretty unique design from most other fly patterns that are out there. And it floats incredibly well in fast water, even with a dropper. But at the same time, it's a sparse, low-riding fly that takes very technical fish. So it kind of it's a broad-reaching pattern. It's a sort of a generic mayfly pattern, like a parachute Adams might be, but a little more technical. And, you can match it specifically to certain mayfly hatches without ever having to know any entomology at all, because you could look and say, as long as you know it's a mayfly, you could look at it and say, well, it's about yay big and about this color, and look in your box and just pick one that's about that color and about that size, and you're good to go.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's cool.
So it's a good pattern. And I designed it here on the Gunnison specifically for one hatch, but it's turned into a fly that I carry in a number of colors and a number of sizes, and it's been fished all over the planet for a trout very successfully.
Nice. Okay. And what about a couple of, if you had a fishing tip or two, do you have anything generally, if you could, I guess, think about the Gunnison, somebody that's trying to get into a few more fish that you would give somebody new, or maybe something you give to a client if you're guiding them?
Mm-hmm. A tip that I would give them for that?
Yeah, maybe like a general thing. If you say you have somebody new to the river you're taking them on, anything generally you kind of throw out there when you're getting going to help them get into more fish?
Well, that's a tough question, but I actually do have something, and that would be learning how to do a reach mend in your cast. Simply because with the fast water that we fish here a lot, you almost every one of my casts has some sort of line manipulation to it because of multiple currents And if you're used to fishing water that has a little more of a steady current and you don't have to do much mending, you're going to get a lot of drag when you come to the Gunnison. And the fish can be fairly aggressive, but, as a guide, I would see fish chasing after flies time and time again and then turning away because the drag was just not so much that it was spooking the fish, but it was pulling away from the strike zone before they got a chance to even get it.
Yep.
So they'll turn and chase it and try to grab it and miss it. And if you can just get a good reach mend or something that presents the fly for an accurate quality drift for even a couple of feet, you almost always have the fish.
Gotcha. Yeah, and getting back to, you mentioned Lefty Kreh, obviously, he passed away recently, and, it was a big loss for everybody. I'm starting to hear some of the amazing stories. I'm sure you know a lot of them about him, but, and this might be a tough question for you as well, but who is the next, who's the next star? I mean, star is not a good way to put it, but, Lefty Kreh, obviously you can't fill his shoes, but, who are the other people out there that are kind of at his level that kind of are going to help, fill the gap a little bit?
Well, there's plenty of people that are filling the gap, but I don't believe there'll ever be another person like Lefty Kreh, simply because the effort and the work that he had to put forth to get where he was doesn't even exist anymore. I mean, he was a writer, he was a photographer, he managed events and did, he was an advisor for companies and helped people design equipment, and he did everything. He really spoke heavy to proteges, let's say, about making sure they were diverse in fly fishing and didn't specialize too much in one category, so they could be used for more things. But what he did and what he had to do to reach the level of expertise that he got, it's too easy for people to be part of that rather than all of it because of the internet for the most part. I refer sometimes to a lot of people that are just armchair experts. You don't know whether there's someone that's out there that's touting a bunch of information on something that they've never even done,
right?
Or whether they're a true expert on it. And when Lefty was doing it, he had to travel, he had to go to the places, he had to do it. And at that time, people looked forward to articles by certain, celebrities that have come out in national publications every week or every month. And that was the only source that they had. So if you were looking forward to the article that came out every month in a like Field and Stream or something, that's the one guy and the one expert that everybody's looking towards, where you can find as many articles from thousands of people, in the time we finish this discussion online.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, I was just thinking one of the stories. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the credentials just aren't, you can't really earn the credentials anymore the way he had to.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there...
It's just something that's going to never be the same. So it can't be another Lefty.
No, definitely not. And that one of the stories that I just recall, I interviewed Flip Pallett on, and he told this amazing story about how it was crazy. I mean, he survived Hurricane Andrew literally like in his house. And the story was that Lefty somehow made it in like the day after, when nobody else could make it to the area because of such a disaster, and gave Flip $25,000 and said, basically, you need it more than me. That one definitely brings some goosebumps to you thinking about, that sort of stuff. So yeah, no, for sure. You can't replace, Lefty. Would you say, who are the people up there that, there's so many, I've interviewed, I think I'm getting close to 60 or wherever I'm at, and they've all been pretty amazing. Who do you think, does anybody stick out? And I guess maybe that's a hard thing for you to say, but I think of, Flip Pallett, as somebody who's been around a while. Do you just look at the old timers? I know there's a lot of new people coming up.
Well, there's both. Yeah, exactly. There's both. And for the show, I try to make that well-rounded. There's newcomers, and obviously we have to have some of the well-established people that have been experts for a long time, because their name is a big draw to the show, and that's why we want to have them there. And that's why we had Lefty there. No one was a bigger.
Joe Humphries,
yeah,
for example,
exactly,
right?
Joe. Yeah. But there's everyone has their specialty. I mean, even Lefty, his specialty was obviously casting.
Yeah.
But I always said about Lefty, when people asked me different questions about celebrity speakers, Lefty was probably one of the most well-rounded fly fishermen. He's fished all over the planet for all different kinds of people. He was also a journalist and good at gathering information. So, you could ask Lefty about fishing for nearly any species of fish, and he probably had some useful information for you. But, I mean, you talk about like Joe Humphries, and he is a diehard trout fanatic. I mean, he's fished a bit for, other things, but, he's a friend of mine, and I know, his saltwater experience is, fairly limited.
Gotcha.
So, but he is a master of trout fishing.
Has he ever slapped you in the face to pump you up? I heard George tell that story, how he'd slap him around a little bit to get him jacked up. That was pretty funny.
Well, he's still is still very athletic, and I don't know if he even still does some wrestling, but I know he still goes to all the wrestling matches at Penn State, and he was on the wrestling team and a wrestling coach. So he's definitely a feisty guy for sure.
That's cool. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you guys have a ton.
I know he just had a back surgery. He just had a back surgery because he shot a deer and during hunting season this fall, and I'm not even sure how old he is now. I forget off the top of my head, so I don't want to say it wrong. But he was out there dragging the deer, carrying a deer down the mountain himself, and injured his back. So I mean, when I'm his age, I just hope I'm still around.
I know. I hear
but it'd be great to be that active.
I hear you. Yeah, it was. I'm just looking up. I want to get the show notes. I'll have a link for some of the stuff we talk about here in the show notes. And this one will be at, I think we're putting this at number 64. So at wetflyswing.com/64, I'll have some links to Joe, and people can connect with him there. But so as far as, obviously Joe Humphries and all these people, there's some amazing speakers. How would somebody... how do you find potentially the new up-and-comers, and then also how would somebody who's interested, maybe they're a new guide or maybe they're interested in getting involved, how would they find you, and then how do you find them?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Most of the people reach out to us because we do have a good reputation, so I'm fortunate in that aspect. But sometimes I hear about some people that are good or get recommendations from other speakers more than anything, and we'll reach out to somebody. Or it might be a particular category that I'm looking for someone to speak on. And, and I'll have to search around to help round out the list of speakers at the show. So a little bit of both. Most of, obviously the biggest names like, Gary Borger and Joe Humphries and stuff like that, we all know, and they've been on our list for years and speaking with us.
Yep. And those are the names that some of those guys draw a good crowd. I'm sure I had Gary Borger on as well, and he did a real cool breakdown on nymphing and some of the history there, which was really interesting. And that makes sense. I guess, if somebody wanted to get involved or maybe potentially speak or present something, the best thing would be to shoot you an email and just let you know what they have going. And actually the networking piece probably is a good thing too. Just get out to some of these shows and, obviously you got to put your time in if you're going to, do anything. So, connecting with people is probably a good start as well. Yeah,
developing a reputation. If you're going to be one of our headline speakers, we're putting you in that position because whether it's your topic or your name, or ideally a combination of the two, are going to draw people through the door.
Yeah.
That's kind of your job as a headline speaker.
Yep.
So developing a good reputation in advance and doing some other events is important. But, it's also not just your expertise on the topic, but you talk about Gary Borger. He was a professor all of his life.
Right.
There's nobody that's a better instructor out there. So, he's very comfortable speaking to a crowd. That's other things that are important. I mean, there's thousands of awesome casters out there, but not everybody can go onto a casting pond and do a casting demo that like Lefty did, where he's got jokes, he's entertaining the crowd, he's teaching, everybody's interested, he doesn't bore them, and he's and he's doing a good demo all at the same time. So the better instructors, the better presenters are good instructors, they're good teachers, they're good at entertaining the crowd. There's a lot more to it than just being good at what you do.
Yeah, gotcha. And for all the stuff you guys have on, all the events and stuff, do you have anything where this is provided kind of virtually, where there's recordings of any of this, where people could, either see it or pay it? Or do you have ideas in the future to do that, put that out there for people who can't attend a show?
I have, and sometimes there's some stuff that's posted, usually through third parties. A lot of people will post of the stuff that they've seen at our shows, and we don't mind that. We are looking at possibly doing that, and talking about Lefty. I actually have access to all of Lefty's presentations over the years, and we're thinking about providing some of those to people through our website. But figuring out how we're going to do that, and they are just his PowerPoint presentation or slideshow that he used to have in a digital format. But without Lefty there narrating it, it's different.
Yeah.
But I can watch some of them, and I can even remember some of the jokes that he might say on certain slides and things like that. So they're still neat for me to look at, or people that may have seen him do a presentation. But a lot of the stuff, if you were going to see it virtually, you don't get the full appreciation of it. And, I mentioned the fly tires are one of my favorite things. You could go on YouTube or anywhere and see hundreds of fly tying videos.
Yep.
But if you ask any of those fly tires, and I've had this discussion with many of them, that have very popular channels, they will tell you you're never going to get as much from that as you would seeing them in person. You might get a good recipe and you might be able to tie that fly, but you can't interact with them and ask questions about why they selected a material. There might be little tricks that you never even catch, that if you're watching them live, you could be like, wait, what did you just do there? And they'll be like, oh, this. And it's something that they may assume you have learned already in fly time, but you never did. And it can make a world of difference in your fly.
Yep.
So there's tons of little things like that you get from a live presentation. And that's what I've really been trying to let people understand and learn over the last couple of years with the availability of online information. That when you come to the show, the information that you get one-on-one or even in a seminar with 100 to 1 or whatever the crowd might be, you can still, raise your hand or shout out or be involved. And, ultimately you may even make a friend out of somebody that's showing you, a demonstration, and that's not really happening if you're just watching a video.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think there's no substitute for the in-person stuff, and whether it's a fly fishing event or any other event, you gotta still, even with all the online resources, nothing is better than shaking somebody's hand and having a drink or whatever. So that's cool. What do you think as far as a resource? Obviously, you guys are a huge resource for a lot of people. Are there any, another show or something out there that maybe isn't your own show that is another good event to go to? And also, is there any other resources you'd recommend for people?
Yeah, obviously, I support any and every show that's out there. We're all complementary to each other. You can get some of the same stuff that we provide at other smaller events, local Trout Unlimited venues and things like that, where you can have a good source of information and also connect with people to go out on the water and make those friends. Like I'm saying, you may talk with a fly tire and it's like, well, then you find out you live or fish the same waters and you connect and go out. And that's where you really can develop a mentoring relationship with somebody. Obviously there's sources online and in print where you can get all kinds of information, and it's really limitless. I'm a fan of a lot of books, so I kind of like to collect fly fishing books. I don't get to read them as much as I would like, just due to time and quite frankly being a slow reader, but those are always a wealth of information.
That's right. What's your you have did your book do you have a library there of like a full wall of books sort of thing? Is that if somebody was to walk into your house or your room, is that what you're looking at, or
I do.
Okay. Does anything come off the top of your head, just of a book that is maybe one of your favorite books, or a recent one you've read? Not necessarily, because there's so many different topics it could be favorite. I mean, you could have something that's just entertaining to read, like anything from John Girac, right,
or you could have educational stuff. I mean, right now I've kind of been reading through Jason Randall's nymphing book, Tips from the Experts. I was actually featured in that for dry fly dropper fishing. He came out and wrote about using a nymph as a dropper with me on the Gunnison. He fished with George in there, and a number of experts that he actually met and got to be friends with through doing the shows with us. So, even the experts create a network through the people that they meet at our shows.
Yeah.
So, that's more of a techniques book. So I like to browse through that. But I'm looking at some of that stuff differently than most people, because I'm not only looking at the information, but I look at some of the information as a way to analyze whether someone would be a good speaker for a show.
Oh, right. Yeah. So if they present a good book or article, then you probably feel good that they'd also present good in person. Yeah,
as a start, at least how the way that they present the information. So I might be intrigued by an article or read through an article on something that's, I've been fly fishing basically my whole life, and I might read through something that's presented towards beginners that I'm really not going to get much out of. You can always find a tip here or two, or a different way to look at something, but I'm looking at it more to see how they present their information and whether it's good to a general audience. And I think it's presented well, so they would draw people in and keep them entertained during the presentation.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I was thinking, as you mentioned, the Portland, I guess the sportsman shows are a little bit different than the fly fishing shows, where they cover a little bit of, a little bit of everything. It's not just fly fishing, but, fishing in general and hunting and everything. I have noted, I've had a couple people just talking about the Portland show. We've seen, I think, that over the years, the fly fishing, I'm not sure exactly what's happened, but it seems like it's slowly been, kind of devolving or whatever, maybe less of a fly fishing connection. Do you see that at all, or have you heard about it at all, that some of the other events aren't fly fishing isn't as strong? And do you see that yours is still growing at a certain rate?
I do see that. One of the reasons that we get from the exhibitors there is, and I'm not specifically talking about the Portland show, but when I say they're at sportsman shows, is, the fly fishermen are fairly specific in what they're looking for. Of course, many are outdoorsmen that may enjoy all aspects of a sportsman show, and I think they're vital to the industry. But a lot of the exhibitors that have a very specific fly fishing only product find that when they go to a sportsman show, they have to weed through a crowd to find those that are interested in their product.
Right.
Whereas when they come to a fly fishing specific event, every person is their customer.
Yeah.
So, you don't find yourself just, shooting the breeze with somebody that's never going to be interested in your product. You might hope so, but you're trying to explain to them what fly fishing is. While your couple good customers have come and gone because you were busy, getting your ear bent by someone, just talking about something random.
Yeah.
So, the exhibitors are more, it's not that the need isn't there, but the exhibitors are more finding that they're getting a better return on their investment into being at a show when it's 100% fly fishing specific.
I see.
So I do see that trend in the sportsman shows. They also, often are set aside in a smaller area, and they just don't get as strong of a traffic flow.
That's right.
And the other thing that we find is we try to limit our shows to the maximum of 3 days. And many, especially the big sportsman shows, can be a week long.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of work for people if their business is kind of spread out over the same days when they could do the same in 3 days at a smaller show or one of our specific fly fishing shows.
Gotcha. What would be a recommendation you might give to somebody at a sportsman show who's kind of in the same position as you if they wanted to grow the fly fishing component?
So you mean if there's someone that's in the event production side trying to grow the fly fishing?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Sportsman show.
I'm not sure if that's if that's where they're going. But just hypothetically, if somebody wanted to do that, would there be a tip you might give them to some?
Oh man, I would really focus if I was doing putting on an event that's outdoors in general. I would do in all categories a lot more introduction, lower level presentations. Simply because you've got a diverse audience. Mm-hmm. So I'd want to intrigue people and bring them into any sport, whether it be, rock climbing or, archery or fly fishing. I'd be thinking about people that were attending there that maybe they haven't done it before. They're there, maybe they're an archer and they're intrigued by fly fishing or vice versa. But they're at the show for the other category. Then they're just interested. So I'd really try to focus on a lot more introductory stuff to help bring people into the sport that's going to benefit everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. A great tip or whatever. Okay. And I'm getting ready to do a quick look. Do you have a little bit of time for a kind of a rapid fire round here?
Sure.
Yeah, good. I think just had a few questions I would be good to touch base on. I think, there's so much with, the fly fishing show, so many questions that keep coming up for me that I think, obviously this episode is focused on that. I think when you mentioned the I guess the niching down part of it, it's kind of like my show, it's a fairly niched, it's fly fishing. And that's what I talk about is everything around fly fishing. So the people that listen to it are super laser focused, on fly fishing for the most part. There's probably some people that are new to it, but I know from the people that I talk to, I get direct feedback, and that's how I choose some of my topics. I listen to them. So that helps me, and that helps me as I look at, potentially getting more sponsors and things like that. I would imagine for you probably have no trouble. I'm not sure how the sponsorship piece works for you, but, do you see that you guys, if you go back when you were starting to grow that, that was a big component of you being a very niched kind of community, or maybe you can just speak to that whole sponsorship and how you guys kind of make money at your shows on top of, I guess, is it the individual sales? Is that where the bulk of the revenue comes from?
Well, for us particularly, the bulk of our revenue comes from ticket sales.
Yeah.
So when we create our event, we're going into it and investing into it the same as our exhibitors, except for at a much higher level. Exhibitors, do pay for booths and things like that. And we do have some sponsorship for different categories and things like that. But sponsorship is by far not vital to our existence. It's something that we're looking to possibly grow, but at the same time, within the fly fishing industry specifically, there's not a lot of sponsorship dollars out there.
Yeah.
So, we don't really push people hard for that. We'd rather them be attending the show and investing in it individually in ways to help promote it. So when we walk in the show floor, the funds that we generate from exhibitors and booth fees and those things are just basically paying for the costs that we put into their space, like decorator fees and and facility rentals and all of that kind of stuff.
That makes sense.
So we're walking into the show, just as invested as anybody else, hoping that a lot of people come through the door. And interesting in some of the questions you've asked. One of the questions that we get from new exhibitors all the time is how many people come through the door, and this is kind of like relevant to our sportsman show analogy, but that's a question that we always think is the worst question that a new exhibitor could be worrying about for attending a show.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's just say you were selling a fly reel and, and I have a ticket fee to come in and, if 1 million people came through the door, I would have a fantastic show. For sure. But if out of that 1 million people, only one person decided to buy a fly reel from you, you may have a terrible show.
That's right.
But if 100 people came through the door, I might have a terrible show. But if 100 of those people, every one of them bought a fly reel from you, you might be raving about how fantastic it is.
Yeah.
So it's all relevant to your demographic. And that's why I say, with our shows being 100% fly fishing, if you have any interest in fly fishing, it's a great show for you. You're going to find something there for you, no matter what your skill level or ability level or education on the sport is. And then if you're a fly fishing company of whatever category, you're reaching all your customers. So, that's what's more important, is to make sure your demographic matches what you're offering. And, we have tons of people that offer to exhibit at our show that do everything from install windows to sell insurance. And, we really try to make the application process in a way that we can control that it's 100% fly fishing.
I hear you. Yeah, no, I love that you put it that way, because whenever people talk about the amount of people you need to, whether it's growing a business or just some sort of a community, there's a interesting article. It's called 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. I may have mentioned this in the past episodes, but it's really cool. And his premise is basically that, you don't need a million people or 10 million to grow something, that can support, if it is a business that can support, really you just need 1,000 true fans, right? Those people that are so dedicated that they love your stuff, they love what you're doing, and that they're sharing your message. And, I think you said it just there that you guys are obviously pretty huge. Well, the biggest fly fishing show in the world, but there's probably a lot of companies out there that could do a good job just finding those 1,000 people or whatever that number is. So no, thanks for your perspective. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it could be less too. And for our exhibitors, there's different things I look at as well. If someone's there selling fly tying materials and you're talking about, an average sale of $10 to $15, they need more volume than someone that's selling a $10,000 high-end luxury fly fishing trip.
Mm-hmm.
If they book a couple of trips through our show, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But if you're selling $15 items, you need to be selling hundreds or thousands of them throughout a weekend.
Yeah, that's another good point. So, okay, well, so let's jump into this rapid fire round. My first question for you, obviously your dad got you into fly fishing, similar to my story. But for you, if it wasn't for your dad and maybe you didn't get into fly fishing, what do you think you would be right now?
Well, I was actually a pro skier for 20 years. So, I was an avid skier. Also grew up surfing my whole life, and
cool.
Even did a little competition in that when I was younger.
Nice. So is skiing
those would be in there.
Is skiing or surfing harder, or maybe harder either to get started?
Surfing is the hardest sport I've ever done.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a pole vaulter in high school, and that was a pretty challenging sport too. But
wow.
Surfing is very, very challenging sport. It means you require athleticism, but you're on a moving, like the earth is moving when you're on it, on the wave. So everything's constantly changing. So you also have to be planning in advance and thinking things out.
Yeah.
In fact, I read an interesting article where, surfers typically have the stereotype like specolli or something,
oh, yeah.
This spacey, zoned out dude. But the article was about that, like surfers and people that have a surfing background are some of the best problem solvers out there because they are typically always analyzing. Yeah, that's what you do when you're out there. And it's one of the things that is very spiritual about surfing is that you kind of got to focus. It's like fly fishing. When people say they're out fly fishing, they forget about all their other problems. There's always days where you can't, but when you're out there and you start getting into the zone, you're not thinking about anything else except what you're doing. And the same with surfing, where you really have to focus on what you're doing, or you can get yourself in trouble. You could drown, if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Specolli, I'll definitely, for those, younger people who don't know Specolli, I'll put a link in the show notes for a little clip there on that as well, because that's a great character.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually in my area.
I think it's best.
What's that?
I think it's best.
Yeah, totally. But in my area, I'm not a big surfer. I do have a surfboard, but I've heard stories about like the local surfers who are just hardcore, and they would do all sorts of crazy stuff. Like if you were surfing their wave out there, they would do, I don't know, come over and tip over your car or do sorts of weird stuff. Did you ever, when you were surfing, did you see that sort of kind of crazy hardcore, localized kind of stuff?
Oh, for sure. There's definitely localism. It's less than it used to be. Same you could face in some fishing spots where people might be, aggressively protect their turf.
That's true.
But it was definitely a thing in surfing. But part of it is that there's a certain hierarchy when you're surfing that you need to learn for, even ultimately the reason is safety. For your safety and other surfers' safety, if you don't know the way things happen, then somebody's going to get hurt. It's the same that we learn how to drive a car and we understand the stop sign and, and rules of the roads. But if you never saw a road and you never saw a car and someone gave you a car and said, go for it, we'd be in accidents all the time and people would be, it wouldn't be safe. And
That's
it's
true.
The same reason why some of that happens, and that the violent natures of it are kind of going away, like people are being more educated about bullying in schools and things like that. It still exists, but people try to, educate others that it's not a good thing to do that. And the same thing with surfing. It's kind of a thing that's going away. You may see it more in different countries or certain areas, but a lot of that stems from you kind of had to fight your way up to your priority for getting a wave.
Gotcha. So, and you were, was it East Coast where you were surfing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I grew up surfing on the East Coast, and I mean, we had localism where I grew up surfing that basically doesn't even exist anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. And maybe you can finish this. If I was to ask you a sentence here, you could finish this. Fly fishing needs. How would you finish that sentence? Kind of where we're at right now in fly fishing, or kind of the stuff you're doing.
Less egos.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. So there's still
less egos.
There's still that's really interesting because I had a great interview with Kelly Gallup, and we were all over the place in the interview. But I brought that up because I think people think of him as one of those guys that has kind of a big ego, but he doesn't think of himself as that. And it's interesting because I think in the past, I've been around fly fishing for quite a while as well. And yeah, the whole ego thing has always been there. But do you think that's lessening as we're going?
It is some, but I think also the, social media and things like that foster it as well.
Yep.
People get worried about how many likes they have and things like that. That's ego.
Yeah.
It might be mild or soft ego, but it is, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I mean, if you wanted to share it and you thought it was something worth sharing, that's great. And it shouldn't matter how many responses you get from it if you were the one that wanted to share it.
Yep. Okay. And what is your, if you had to say your favorite music, either a band or type of music?
Oh, I like all kinds of music really, but reggae is probably my favorite.
Oh, nice. Yeah. A little, little Bob Marley.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of reggae, you're pretty much you're obligated to say he's your favorite if you had to choose one.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. And what about after you get off the river? Do you have a favorite beverage that you like to enjoy after a good day on the river?
Oh, it depends on the time of the year and the place.
What about where's been your place?
Like I said, I like to travel, so I like to sample local things.
What has been, sounds like you've traveled all over the place. Do you have a location in mind that you've been hitting recently, or is a place that you really love to go to?
Well, I get asked that question actually quite a bit, and my favorite next location is simply the next location I get to go fish.
Okay.
It could be down the street or on the other side of the planet. I always look forward to where I'm going next. And, one of my favorite things is to try new areas for new species of fish. I've got like over 300 different species on a fly. And,
oh, really?
I always look forward to figuring out the other kinds of fish.
That's cool. So you've caught 300 species on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Over. That's over.
I got to do a tab. I've kind of lost track, but I was like around 275, and a year or so ago, and I've kind of dropped off my
totally.
My notes.
That's awesome because I've had Jeff Currier is definitely a guest that I think he's getting close to 400. Mm-hmm. And when we were chatting, I was chatting with him. I asked him like, who else is out there that's is there anybody out there even close to you? And he didn't have a good answer. But it sounds like you might be one of those people that's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting up to numbers like he is, it's pretty tough. But we fished together, and we did a trip 2 years ago to Brazil, and I can assure you that there's probably not been anybody that's fished that place where we were for some of the fish that Jeff and I fished for. Mm-hmm. I think over the week that we were there, we landed 16 different species on the fly, and there's like all these awesome fish you could fish for, peacock bass and wolffish and payara and different things. And, we would be over in like some little corner trying to catch this 3-inch fish that looked really cool, living in the sticks in some little pocket, and trying to see if we could catch them because we just like catching different things.
That's
some
awesome.
Of those are the most challenging.
That's sweet. So who has the bigger ego between you and Jeff?
Jeff doesn't have much ego, and neither do I. I mean, we can go somewhere and do pretty good fishing, but we've both fished enough places that we've got it handed to us. So we know that as soon as you get there, that's when you have a bad trip. I I tend to try to go on a trip with, I have expectations, but they might be the best trips that I have lower expectations. I mean, I'll go there and I'll be like, man, I hope I catch one of these.
Right.
I just hope I catch one. Sometimes even like I hope I see one, and in the end, I might have a great trip. Like and you can slowly raise your bar while you're there. But if you go, hoping you're going to have a great trip, like you've never permit fished, you're like, oh, I'm going to go catch 20 of them.
No.
You're probably setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. I would just hope that I got a shot at a permit on a trip, and that's one of my favorite fish to fish for.
Right.
But, like, for example, I just did a trip to Brazil for Arapaima that it actually might be coming out in a new film. Cool. I know it will be. But, I went with the goal, hoping to see one, hoping to catch one. I only had 3 days. And, the first day we ended up, and the guy I ended up fishing with, which was not who I was planning with due to some changes in schedule, but I just ended up fishing with a random guy and we hit it off. He was a good angler, actually involved in the industry a little bit. And so we knew a lot of mutual friends, but we ended up having, I think, the guide said it was maybe his second most best day that he ever had.
Wow.
And, I think we caught forget what we caught that day, 16 Arapaima. I was hoping to catch one in 3 days. First day we got 16.
Amazing.
Then we started seeing some bigger ones, and my standard, kind of went up, and I ended up with one that was almost 2.5 meters and over 300 pounds. So
jeez,
it was a really successful trip, and my goal was to see one. So
that's amazing. That was amazing.
Now I'm jaded. I don't know if I would go back.
That's cool.
I don't know if I could ever do that well.
I was just getting ready to ask you. Jeff told a crazy story about one of his trips, and I was just getting ready to ask you that. But that's a pretty good story right there in itself. So yeah, all good. Well, when that comes out, I'll add a link into the show notes hopefully for that video too down the line, since this episode will be out there for a while. But yeah, we're just about there. Just had a couple other quick ones. Do you have a go-to piece of gear? It doesn't necessarily have to be fly fishing. It sounds like you've done a lot of traveling. Something you don't leave home without?
Well, I really don't leave home without anything for fly fishing. Like I might go on a trip for something else, but I always try to throw a fly rod in there because you never know. So I like to have something in there. But as far as fly fishing, I do have an answer for that. It's a little more well known now, but when I first started fishing with sinking lines, I built my own out of lead core trolling line before they really even had them readily available. And I don't go anywhere without some sinking lines, because I've literally opened up new water in places because some of my saltwater experience and background with sinking lines, you take it to a place where people never use them, and all of a sudden they're going from like, oh yeah, it's just slow fishing today, and you're like, well, let's try over there to get deeper, and all of a sudden you're catching a bunch of fish, and you're like, wow,
right,
okay, cool. So I always carry some fly fishing or some sinking lines in my fly fishing gear, no matter where if I'm going flats fishing, I have some sinking lines with me. May never take them out.
Sure.
But sometimes when the going gets tough, I've hit some flats fishing days where it's like horrible weather, and you go start casting a sinking line in some channels, and you catch some really awesome fish.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good tip as well. When if you think about the fly fishing show, say we go 100 years out into the future, and I'm not sure if it'll still be around, at that point, but what would you want people to remember about the show? If they look back and say it isn't still running, is there anything that sticks out to you that you guys are kind of want to be remembered for?
The fly fishing show, yeah, sure. Bringing the sport to more people and creating educational opportunities.
Yeah, You're definitely
that's our ultimate goal.
Yeah. And is that when you look at, a success of whether it's any given year or event or anything, you mentioned the numbers about people through the door and all that, but is there a way that you judge success of your events differently, or how do you, determine whether it was a successful event?
That's a good question, because I get lots of people at the shows, our exhibitors or speakers or whoever, asking me if they thought it was a success, and I usually turn the question around and ask them the same thing. And if they say yes, then I say, well, then it was a success for me, because my goal is to make it successful for those involved.
Gotcha.
If one of our exhibitors has a great show, then that means, I had a great show. If they all have a great show, then I had a really great show.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a little bit of a maybe a selfish question, but if I am up at the event up there this year, any tips for me how I might do a good job of covering? I'm hoping to talk to as many people as possible and just get around and maybe do an episode out of it, but I'm not sure. Any tips you'd give somebody that wants to go up there and kind of cover the event and come back and give people a perspective on what it's about?
On that specific event, or any of them?
Yeah, just any of them in general. I mean, I guess if there's, I probably will be at the Washington event, so if something does stick out there, you could touch on that. But yeah, just generally, I know there's going to be at least one other podcast I know of that's going to be kind of at the shows. But yeah, just curious for myself. I'd like to do my best to maybe showcase what you have going, or just do my best at networking and things like that.
Oh, sure. For like someone in your shoes, you can always reach out to me about some of the speakers that are there, and I can put you in touch. So you can do some, you could do a podcast with them before or after the show and talk about some of what they're going to talk about at the show, so customers can come in a little more educated on what they're looking to find out.
Yeah.
Even though, like George said, not to talk about nymphing, I'm sure, if you were talking to him about something and said, you're going to be doing some presentations on nymphing, what can people get out of that?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily talking about the nymphing, but what they're going to gain by seeing them. The same with, any of the speakers, but that could also be why, he didn't want to talk about some of that, because some of the speakers want you to come to find that information out at the shows rather than having it available. Like you were saying about your virtual information, some of it is kept sort of, let's not say private, but kept where the speaker has a value in doing their presentation for a year or so. And then they may make it available, or they may even put it in a book. A lot of them base their talks, like George, off of their upcoming book that might come out. So they're releasing some of the information in advance. You get to learn from them in person, and then that, man, I better buy that book because he did a really good talk on this, and I want all the information that he has.
Yeah.
So, then that comes out, and they may be moving on to their next topic.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's good points. Okay. Well, Ben, I guess that's about all I have for you. I just want to check, in the next 6 to 12 months, if you have anything other than the shows, that over the next few months here, you're going to be hitting that. Anything else you want to note that's coming up that you have going on? You want to share with yourself personally or the show?
Oh, no, I'll be, personally, I'm just going to be tied up and working like a madman through the show season. What a lot of people don't really understand is, at this point, in fact, just as I'm talking to you right now, I just got a message about something for 2020. So at this point, we're starting to already plan for our 2020 shows. Speakers that might be interested should be starting to, discuss with us about their hopes and thoughts, and exhibitor contracts should be coming out very shortly for exhibitors to lock in their booths for 2020. And, just at the shows, working on making sure that everybody knows about them. That's ultimately the goal. If everybody knows about them, then we should have successful events, bar any, events that are outside of our control, like a snowstorm or something of that sort, which sometimes we face, but that's why we have more than one event, to diversify a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. And if people want to find you, the best place, where should we send them if they have questions or want to connect with you?
Yeah, flyfishingshow.com is the best place to find out information. There's all of our schedule on it, as well as information on what's happening at each of the events. We have travel information there for people coming from out of town, which many do, as well as all the the local attendees. We do discounted blocks for hotel rooms for our guests, as well as exhibitors, which can actually be quite fun. I mean, I've talked to many guests that come to a show and stay at the hotel, and they may be sitting at the bar in the hotel just having a drink, and then they realize they're sitting next to Bob Clauser or something.
Yeah.
And they come back and they're like, it was so worth staying there because I got to become friends with these guys, and they were my idols, and here I was like sitting next to them, and I didn't even know it was them.
Nice.
It's pretty fun stories to hear. So staying the whole weekend can be really fun. And as well as all of our contact information, if you're looking to inquire as an exhibitor or a speaker, that's all on the website. So you can find everything you need to get in touch with us, and we're always happy to answer questions.
Okay, perfect. All right, Ben, well, I'll let you get going. Just wanted to thank you for coming on and sharing all the information here. I'll definitely, like I mentioned, be at the show, I think, up in Washington, so hopefully I'll connect with you. But yeah, I appreciate you doing what you do and helping everybody get into fly fishing and kind of growing the community out there. So we'll hope to keep in touch with you.
Yeah, sounds good. I look forward to seeing you up there, and if you need any connections to line up prior to the event, I'm more than happy to do that, as well as for any other listeners that might be out there that are looking to pre-plan for some things at the show. We're always willing to help.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks a lot, Ben. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks. Bye.
All right, see ya.
So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/61. And if you want to support the show, head over to wetflyswing.com/support and join the little micro movement we have going on. Thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon and hope to maybe connect with you on the river or online.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.